our guest spotlight on Black history. Today's spotlight is on Olympic rower Aquil Abdulah.
What's good? What's up, everyone?
Welcome, Aquil.
Thank you.
All right, let me give you a little background on Aquil. Aquil is a Woodrow Wilson Senior High School Tiger. He was recruited for rowing at the George Washington University, where he graduated in 1996 with a degree in physics. He was on the U.S. national team from 1999 to 2004, where he competed at the 2001, 2002, and 2002 World Championships, and became the first African-American male rower at the 2004 Athens Olympic Games. He earned a silver medal in the single at the 1990 Pan Am Games and also won the Diamond Challenge Sculls in 2000. Currently, Aquil is the senior infrastructure engineer, but remains heavily involved in rowing, serving on numerous boards and advisory boards. He also has co-authored a book, Perfect Balance. Aquil and his wife Megan live in Massachusetts with their 2 children. Aquil, thank you so much for joining the show. Thank you for joining the show. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Akil. We appreciate your time.
So, Aquil, we gave you a long bio. So, is there anything you'd like to tell the audience a little bit about yourself that we didn't share?
No, I also
We lose them already?
in Augusta, Georgia. Yeah.
2 words
So
in.
yeah, I played saxophone with James Brown.
Oh, saxophone with James Brown.
Wait,
Wow, you've lived.
You played saxophone with James Brown?
Yeah, so I was training in Augusta, Georgia, and I had my saxophone with me, and I went to sit in with the house band at this bar, and winner came in and said, "Hey, we got a special guest who's going to get up and play with us." And so he gets up, he comes over, and he said, "I feel good here, D." What did he say? He said, the trumpet player next to him said, "I feel good in the key of D."
In the key of D.
And we're playing it, and he said, "Here, give it to me one time." And I was like, "What?" The trumpet player said, "Aquil, it's your solo."
Wow.
Yeah, that's actually one of that was a highlight of the career, probably.
Oh wow.
Wow, that's incredible.
Nice.
That reminds me of that Eddie Murphy bit in Delirious. What did James say? I don't care. Just keep playing.
All right, Aquil,
Very
so
cool.
you were the first African American Olympic rower in the Olympics. Tell us about your journey to that.
Wow, that was that's it's crazy at Wilson. And my senior year, I decided I didn't want to run track, but I wanted to just chill but still be active and play sports. And so I decided to row. I had a bunch of friends that rowed, and they had been trying to get me to come out for this sport. And so I got like, man, you guys aren't athletes. And so I got on the rowing machine, and I did. And the next thing you know, I'm like falling off the rowing machine. I'm like, got a bucket, like hurling. And I just realized how tough it was.
Wow.
And I got really lucky in that the coach for George Washington University saw me and offered me a scholarship to row. And so I hadn't really decided where I was going to go to college. But I wound up senior beach week is on us. And I hadn't decided where I was going to go to school. And I'm like walking down the stairs, and my mom's like, "No, you're not leaving the house until you tell me where you're going to school next year."
Oh, nice.
And I knew that the guys had beers in the trunk of the car. So I just didn't want her to go outside when I was loading my bags. So I said, "I'm going to GW." And that's, I don't recommend that's how people make their decisions about college
decisions.
but that's pretty much how I made mine. I mean, I knew in my heart what I wanted to do. So I went on to GW, and there I started to excel and I started rowing in the summers. And I was at Potomac Boat Club in DC at what they call a development camp. That's where athletes have been identified as possibly being on track to make the national team.
Nice.
And the coach of Georgetown was Tony Johnson. Was like, it's like, Akil, we've got some really good guys coming from Harvard and Dartmouth. I want you to try out sculling. And I was thankful for that decision, because that's sort of where I found my niche. I can row in a single. So in rowing, there's sculling and sweep. In sculling, each rower has 2 oars, and in sweep, each rower has 1 oar.
Okay.
And so that's sort of like the big boats that you see in college, or the 8s. Those are sweep. And so that's what I did through my college career. And so that's 2003. 2003 World Cup in Milan. So
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So back when I didn't have so much gray in my hair. So I kept at it. And in 1996, like pretty much that summer, after I had finished college, I went to the U.S. National Championships, and I won in the single scull, and I became the first African American to win U.S. Nationals.
Wow.
And so that was pretty much, sort of part of it. I think the one thing I will say is, like, at no point in my career was my goal to be the first. Like, my goal was to win races and to be as best
to
as
do
I
what
could,
you love, right?
optimize my performance.
Yeah.
So in 2000, I'm poised to be the first African American male to go to the Olympics, and I was there. I was racing, like, so much hype. All the papers were like, yeah, and so in my second race, it's a 3-boat. You have to win 2 out of 3. And so I won the first race of the Olympic trials, and I'm like, yeah, I'm fired up. And then in the second race, I had an asthma attack.
Oh.
And and then in the third race, I lost by 33 hundredths of a second in 2000. It was just like, I was devastated.
3,300.
Agony of defeat. Agony of defeat.
That's the thing with the Olympics. You lose by fractions of seconds in the Olympics. I mean, you win by fractions of seconds too, but Olympics is best of the
You've
best.
dealt with asthma your whole life?
Yeah. I mean, when I was a child, I had it really bad. Like I was hospitalized at least once.
That's what happened to my brother also. Wow.
But and so I grew out of it, but it's still sort of like conditions can be right to sort of cause it to act up.
Yeah.
I think also too, that might have something to do with DC, because I had it as a child as well, and I have severe allergies here because of all the pollen and the humidity and stuff, so forth. But I think it might be an environmental thing for us DC folks, because I've heard that story on several occasions.
Or people living in cities, I can see that.
Cities in general, probably. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
that's why I live out in the country now. Got that nice, clean country air.
That's right.
So, Lizzie,
air. You miss this DC air.
I do. I miss it so much.
No, you don't.
Seriously, Adams Morgan. Like all the food. I mean, right now.
Have you been back recently?
Yeah.
I was going to say, Akil, when was the last time you were in DC?
That's a good point.
Wow.
It's changed quite a bit.
I just moved back in March of 2019. So I left DC right after high school. Long journey. Finland, Colorado, New York, then finally made my way back here. But the DC that I live in now is not our mama's DC. It so isn't. I live at the waterfront, which when we were in high school, a little sketchy.
Talking about? I grew up around there. What are you talking about? Yeah. I went to Jefferson Junior High, right over by you. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, he went to junior high school around the corner from me now, but the area is unrecognizable.
It
It's
is. Very different.
Wow.
And
It's
it's for the
crazy.
better.
Oh, no
But
question.
yeah, you wouldn't recognize certain parts of DC coming
Depends
back.
on your thought. It depends on your feelings on gentrification as to whether or not it's for the better.
Yeah. I went to get a
I'm not
haircut
talking about the
and
peoples. I'm not talking about the peoples. I'm talking about just revitalizing certain neighborhoods, if you will, because there was a lot of
which has seemingly required gentrification. Okay, I'm going on a tangent. I'm sorry.
which there was a lot of empty space over here just dwindling and doing nothing, collecting dust or creating crime spots, so at least they've developed a lot of the space over here. Like the building that I live in now is 3 years old. 3 years old. So when you come back, you need to go to Southwest, go to the waterfront, and just stand and be like, where the hell am I? That's what you need to do when you come back.
All right, Robbie Rock, you have a question for Aquil?
Well, yeah, I mean, 0.33 seconds, 33/100ths of a second. Yeah. How did you deal with that as an athlete? Because we're not talking seconds, we're talking a third.
Yeah.
What kind of impact did that have on you, and how did it strengthen your resolve right at the onset, or was it more of a crushing thing at the onset that you built from?
Thanks for taking me to a dark place, Rob.
What I do.
No, I think that I was lucky. I had a coach because I was devastated. Like more than anything, I felt like I had let friends and family down. And my coach at the time, Mike Tatey, was standing on the dock with me, and he said, my parents were standing down at the end of the dock, and he said, hold your head up, man. He said, look down there. Your parents still love you. And, that was like one of those soul crushing moments where I had to get out of my own way, and so that was hard, but it was like, it was true. And then I got really lucky. I was invited to go to race in Henley that year, and I won. And that is one of the, that was a very prestigious regatta, and to be the first again to do that, to be on history with, Jack Kelly for Brickworks, like out of Philadelphia fame, like that for me was something that let me know that I could do this. I could compete at this level. And so it sort of did it at the moment. Not so much. I was ready to hang up my oars, but then sort of all of the things that followed let me know that my time wasn't over yet.
I have a question online for you from Reuben Gorin, another one of our classmates.
You remember Reuben?
I know Reuben. Reuben Groove. I know Reuben.
He wanted to know. How was it switching from sweep to skull? Sorry, from sweep to skull. It's tongue twister. Sweep, skull.
Sweep to skull. It's not that difficult.
Hey, you don't have the same tongue that I have. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. Now I think it was a natural transition for me. It actually improved my sweep. Like I started to perform better. It's just more symmetrical. And so it's definitely in the single, it's more technical. You don't have a lot of people setting the boat up. There's only two people. Yeah, that's me and Henry at the Olympics.
That's a good picture.
Right there.
That is a good picture.
Yeah.
It's 2004, right?
2004,
you
yeah.
Still got those guns? You still got those guns?
No, I got just a little something left. A little something.
I don't know. Let's see. We got some more recent pictures. What are you talking about?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
It's a little softer now.
There.
A little softer now.
He said softer.
Not as cut now, but that's I got dad strength now.
Dad strength. Gianni, what's your question for Aquil?
So Aquil, I know that you played football as well. How did your parents feel when you kind of gave up the pursuit of playing football in trying rowing?
Yeah. So my mother was elated because she did not like seeing her baby get hit on the field, like, wide receiver and tight end.
Yeah.
So my dad, who had played football, was a little less happy about it, um, because one, it was foreign, like, really foreign to him, and sort of, we all have those ideas in our head about sort of what we want our children to become. But saying that, both of my parents were all supportive. My mom, my stepdad, my dad, they all were there for me as I continued the journey.
Lizzie, your question?
So a couple of things. First and foremost, what about, since it's Black History Month and we're talking
Hmm.
about, you were the first
Hmm.
Olympic wise, first, you went up to be the
Yeah.
first. What about any adversity along the way? What
Yeah.
about any hints of what are you doing here, or
Hmm.
racism or looks? What was that story like for you? What was that experience?
Yep. Hidden racism. It was there. I think that the Wilson alum will agree that not to, Gianni, to cut you and and Rob out, but we went to a pretty diverse school,
Very diverse.
and
Yeah.
it really helped me to figure out who I was. I had in college, I had like one incident, not an incident, but like sort of for me that was like formative. I was hanging out with all of my rowing friends, and we went to Union Station for a movie, and I saw a bunch of my black friends from Wilson, and I was like, I'm hanging out with all these white people, like what's going on? And I had to think about I had to think about who I was and what it was that I wanted to accomplish, and what I actually thought of my friends. And so that sort of helped to form like a version of me that said like rowing is important to me, and people in my life who recognize that are the people that I want in my life. But then sort of taking that, you know, forward, I was training in Princeton, New Jersey. And,
Mm.
we were hanging out with the students there and so on. And I always had a question of, am I accepted because I'm here rowing? You know, if I were just some black guy that had walked in, would I still be accepted? That was always a question that I had in my head. And it is, after the George Floyd murder, I had friends that I had competed with and rode with, like, come and talk to me and said, you know what? I never talked to you about race. And that's shame on me. I never asked you how you felt about these things, because we didn't, we were focused on sports. We were focused on winning, on optimizing our performance. But, me being the only, me being the other, even though we all were focused on the same goal and I knew that they had my back, it was still there, the fact that I was black. The one time that it was sort of overt, I was in Japan, and there was some
Mm.
drunk guy on the train who started, yelling at me in Japanese, and our interpreter was like, "No, I'm not going to tell you what he's saying,"
Mm.
you know. And so,
Oh.
but it messed with my mind a little bit, in the sense that, I always knew that, like, there is some acceptance because I'm here as an athlete, as a rower. Um, and you get a little unsure sometimes of what people really think of you,
Mhm.
and you hear it and maybe it's a joke that people tell, and they're like, oh yeah, but Akil, he's all right. It's subtle,
Mhm.
because these are people that they don't think that this bothers you, but it
Because
gets into some deep places.
as a black athlete, you had to be in those white environments, um,
Hmm.
which
Well, and crew and rowing, it's a white sport.
right,
It's, at
right.
least in the United States, it's a very affluent white sport.
Hmm.
Mhm.
It's an Ivy League sport. Most of the crew teams are on the East Coast in this, at least for college level. in this country, except for USC, where they try to cheat and get those rich kids on the crew team and say they were crew, but they really weren't crew. But that's a whole other story. But yeah, it's a very elite sport. But even
Yeah.
though it's elite, Akil, what about getting paid? Like when you think
Mhm.
of rowing, especially
Yeah.
professional rowing or Olympic level rowing, world championship, like is there a lot of money in that? Can you make a living off of that?
I'm not
No?
talking to you from my yacht. Um, I'm talking to you from
What are you talking
a
about?
room that
That's
doubles
where I
as a
thought you were
playroom,
calling
a
in
workout
from.
room, an office. No, you bring up a very good point. There's a couple of things I do want to say. One is that there are a number of, of people of color rowing
Now,
at now, not when
yeah.
I was not when I was growing, but but and recently there was an organization called Black Coaches and the Black Coaches and Rowers Association that I
Hmm.
that I work with, and it's just amazing to see the kids transcend now. There was a rower from UVA. Her and her twin sister are athletes there. She's a rower. Her sister's a lacrosse. They started on Instagram, athletes for Black Lives Matter. So I really see this organization that you really didn't see. The ability to connect now is so larger. So even though when I was rowing, there may have been more Black and rowers or people of color rowing, but we couldn't make those connections because the social media wasn't there. The ability to connect
Mhm.
wasn't there.
Good point. Good
So
point.
I've seen it grow. But getting back to getting paid, I think that that's one of the things. Like, why should I row? Like if you're a kid and you're from under resourced area, rowing isn't going to help you. How do you see the value? How do you place the value on it? And so the answer to your question in short is no. There's not a lot of money in rowing, and so for me, it was never. It was about the dream that happened. Sorry, I'm babbling here. I talked to my daughter's kindergarten class yesterday, and I talked about how I saw the Olympics in 1984, LA Games. I didn't tell them the full story of like me, like standing, with like this right here, and like in the bathroom going dun, dun, and my mother walking in and saying, "What is wrong with you, boy?" But like that's where the dream started for me. So it was about
Wow.
fulfilling that dream, coming full circle. Like that was part of it
Wow.
for me. But no, there's not a lot of money in rowing. But there is a lot of access in rowing. And that is one thing that I have really benefited from. Like the people that I know now,
Got
the
some
people
comments
on.
on. Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go
Yeah.
ahead. Finish up. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, and this is actually why I think that there's a movie called A Most Beautiful Thing right now about, it's a documentary about the first uh, Black high school rowing team in the country
Oh
in the late
wow.
90s.
Wow.
Um,
Where
and
were they?
and
Very
Arshay
cool.
Cooper, yeah, he went on to be a chef and all of this stuff. But the story there can connect. If you're a CEO that went to Harvard and you see a movie about rowing and these Black kids, you can connect with that story through rowing. So it's about that access now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, a
So
couple of comments online.
I,
I've got Liana Jones says, such awesomeness. Monica Alicia says, I remember watching. It was so exciting to watch. And Reuben Gordon had one last question. Did you have any Black teammates at any time after high school?
No. Oh, I mean, at clubs. So yes. So when I was at Potomac Boat Club training for the Olympics, yes. But once I sort of made it to sort of the national team, uh, no. So pretty much like 6 years, I had no other teammates that were Black.
Wow.
And I only had one question for you, because I read online. There's a challenge of being Black, obviously, but sh- you were in the Olympics around September 11th time frame, right? And there was a story that I had read about you where you were literally on a no-fly list because you had a Muslim name. Can you tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that?
Wow.
Yeah, you want to talk about crazy. I'm getting on a flight to actually go out to a competition in Seattle. And I show up at the airport, and the person at the desk says, "We have to wait for you to be cleared to fly." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And I said, "Yeah, the FBI office hasn't opened yet, and you have to wait." I was like, "But my plane is in an hour. Like I need to get on the plane." And the feeling of going to represent your country and being stopped and told you can't fly and missing a flight. I mean, that was crazy. And what bothered me was the what I call security theater, right? Because if I had changed my name to John Smith,
Mm-hmm.
then there would have been no problem,
Mm-hmm.
right? And anyone intent on doing harm is not going to fly as Aquil Abdulah, right? So
Yeah,
it's
that's
it's it's theater. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's weak. It's not real security.
Right.
And so like that whole no fly list to me is just
Yeah, that was
it's
ridiculous.
a bunch of BS. It's not. So yeah, so that hurt. And the other thing I couldn't figure out was how was it that the same Akil Abdul with the same address, same passport, flying out of the same airport for the past 5 years, you know,
Suddenly on a
like
yep.
suddenly can't fly.
Crazy.
But
I mean, that
yeah,
was, and that just points to the, you weren't just dealing with racism, but you were actually dealing with, you know, a religious. Uh, I mean, because I don't know
Islamophobia.
what your religion is. I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not
yeah,
gonna ask you that. But I'm just, I mean, you're dealing with the same persecution of religious persecution as well. So
Religious,
yeah,
religious persecution, but also xenophobia, because it's assumed when you see the name Akil Abdullah that you are not American, that
hmm
you were most
yeah,
likely Muslim from the Middle East.
yeah,
So
Mhm.
yeah,
it's all
yeah,
of it. It's all of it. Every one of those things. Every one of
yeah.
right.
those things.
Yeah.
And you're
And
an
truth be told,
Olympian, a U.S. Olympian, dealing with this is just absurd.
Did you hit
yeah.
him with? Do you know who I am? Did you hit him with that?
That
Well, I
would have been
mean,
funny.
I tried, but she said no. But no, I have no idea who you are, sir.
So I have a quick story
Wow.
for you. Try to make this
Make
as
it,
quick as
yeah, make
possible.
it quick because we got to move on.
So you in high school you didn't really have any black um teammates, correct? On the crew team at Wilson? Were there any other black
One,
people?
Ben Eaglin,
Oh,
Oh,
actually two.
I remember
I
Ben.
take it back. Two. Nikki Core.
Nikki Core. Yep, Nanika Core.
Nikki
Yep.
Core. Okay.
Sorry.
So it was almost three, Akil. It was almost three. So I think by the time you guys actually started rowing, I had already dropped out. But for
Mm,
novices, you know how they you have to try out in the fall and then again in the spring. And so I
yeah.
tried out in the fall of 90. Um,
Ah.
and my dad was taking me, so I was at Thompson Boathouse every day after school, before school, then during the workouts and all that stuff. And at the time, my dad had a lot of medical issues, and so he didn't want me, especially for the 6 a.m. practices. He
Hmm.
was just like, "I can take you. You're fine if you're coming after school and you're late,
Yeah.
but I'm not letting you get on the subway to go to the other side of town at
Yeah.
5:36 in the morning." So that was one. He would no longer, be my ride there. But also too, I was just like, I really want to do, like, why are you trying out for crew? Like, where did you get this idea in your head, Elizabeth? And it was because I liked a boy. I'm not gonna tell you which boy, but it was because I liked the boy. And I was like, okay, you can be on the crew team. So I was almost show teammate. And I can't remember the coach's name. He was a white guy who was in the Air Force.
Joe
Um,
Shuttleworth.
Yes, 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 yes. And so he wanted Maya Eaglin was one of the coxswains. And
Maya, yeah.
she and I kind of had the same frame. Like we were just tiny girls with big boobs. And so he was like, yeah, I think I want you to be a coxswain. I'm like, I don't want to sit in the front. I want to row. Like if I'm getting up
Yeah.
and doing all this working out and stuff, I want to row. So that was another reason why I kind of dropped out. So I did all of the fall workouts, but then come January, February, when you guys really got into it, I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. Oh, and another thing that changed my decision, you know how they, when you're practicing and they flip the boat over for the first time to prepare you for an actual, I wasn't ready for, and I'm a good swimmer. I'm an excellent swimmer. I was not prepared for that. Was not, because he didn't tell us.
We gotta.
He didn't tell us. So yeah, I was almost your teammate. I was almost your teammate.
Almost. All right, Akil. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but we actually want to ask you to stick around a little bit. Join us for our game show. We're doing Olympic trivia.
Nice. I will be here.
But before you leave, are there any last words, anything you want to share with us about your experience as the first African American male rower in the Olympics, or anything? And then also tell people how they can get in contact with you if they want to get more information about it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I will tell you, if you want to get in touch with me, you can hit me up at Aquil_Hydro on Instagram. So that's how you can reach out to me. I will say that the experience of going to of walking into the Olympic Stadium, that was something I will never forget. I mean, you just can't imagine being in a dark tunnel and coming out to fireworks and just pandalarium. That for me is just something that will always stick with me. And I think that what I will say is that if you find something that you love, do it, and don't let anyone tell you that you can't. So find a vision and just keep working at it.
Well, Akil, once again, thank you so much. Thank you for doing what you've done, making history in the way you've made history. I know you had some challenges, so we do appreciate that. So thanks again for joining us, Akil. We'll see you shortly.
We'll see you in a few.
All right.
We'll see you in a few.
All right.